Hi everyone, today we will be looking at 19th century German werewolf myths. Werewolves are commonly known as humans who shapeshift into wolves on a full moon. But how does this mythological creature apply to German 19th century literature? To explore how, we first should get into the historical context of 19th century Germany. The greatest political change of the century was the proclamation of the German Empire in 1871. After the joint victory of the German states in the Franco-Prussian War, southern German states Baden and Hesse-Darmstadt joined the German Confederation. On January 1, 1971, the new constitution came into force.
Beginning January 18th of that year, Germany officially unified and Prussian King William I was named the German Emperor. 19th century Germany also saw a major Prussian influence, with Prussia's advancing industrialization and rapid trade development. Another ideological influence Germany underwent in the 1800s was the rise of conservatism. The German Chancellor Bismarck enforced a strategy of strengthening a societal hierarchy to maintain traditional relations of authority between social groups. The creation of the unified German Emperor, the influence of Prussian culture, and the rise of conservatism all set the cultural background for the two myths we'll be talking about today.
The legend of the hungry farmhand is one of the oldest and most popular German werewolf myths. It originated as a fairy tale from a collection of the famous Grimm brothers. Here's how the story goes. A man went to start working on a field with a friend of his. While working on the farm, he could tell there was something strange about one of the other men working on the field, but couldn't quite place a finger on it. After a long day on the field, the farm hands all went to sleep in the barn. The man pretended to fall asleep, but watched as a strange man quietly stood up and took off his belt. Instantly, the strange man turned into a wolf. The wolf then ran out of the barn. Outside of the barn, the wolf attacked a horse and completely devoured it. Inside the barn, the farmhand was watching, but he was shocked. Fearing for his life, he forced himself to pretend he was asleep as the wolf came back into the barn. The wolf put back on his belt, and he transformed back into a man. After all the farmhands awoke, they decided to take the route through the forest to return to town. As the group traveled back to town, the strange man complained of having a stomachache. The farmhand whispered to his friend, "When one devours a whole horse." But the strange man heard and interrupted, saying, "Had you said this as we walked through the forest, you wouldn't have been able to say this now." Using a cultural and historical lens to relate back to 19th century Germany, the werewolf and the legend of the hungry farmhand can be connected to Christianity. According to general German werewolf mythology, werewolves gained their abilities to shapeshift through an alliance with the devil. This theory explained the extreme violent impulses of werewolves. The werewolf itself was the embodiment of a sinner who had been cursed to become a werewolf as punishment. The ideology of punishment for sins is very Christian-based and connects back to the historical context of Germany's rise of conservatism during the century. The myth of the hungry farmhand also connects to Christian views of sexual relationships through its figurative elements. The hungry farmhand connects to the theme of werewolf symbolism of sexual deviancy. In the story, the werewolf eats a horse whole. According to the analysis of Bleicourt, a werewolf mythology expert, the werewolf's devouring of the horse is a metaphor for bestiality. Bestiality is considered sexual deviancy, an extreme taboo in the Christian religion. The Bible mentions bestiality in Exodus 22:19, saying, "Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal must be put to death." This places emphasis on the sinful characteristics associated with the werewolf. Another figurative element that applies to the legend of the hungry farmhand is the motif of a belt that werewolves use in German mythology to shapeshift. But this kind of belt has special figurative properties. Belts divide the human body in half and place emphasis on the lower half of the body. Because the bottom half of a man's body is inherently sexual, the motif of the belt transfers these primal and sexual characteristics to the werewolf. This association ties largely to the newly unified German Empire's emphasis on conservatism and Christianity, casting the werewolf in a negative light as a symbol of sinful sexuality. In the 19th century German culture, the coexistence of a human and a wolf in the same body was considered a violation of the laws of nature. The difficulty of being able to categorize a werewolf as part of the wilderness or civilization is another example of how werewolves represent taboos in Christianity.
Another famous German myth is the backbiter. The general story goes like this. There was a boy who had to carry the werewolf several times. When he passed a certain place, he was jumped upon. He could meet a werewolf anywhere, but some places where the road narrowed or where there was a corner with many brambles and willows, then it could happen that when he passed there at night, he had to carry him until he arrived home. The myth centers on the theme of sexual deviancy through the specific rhetoric. While there have been variations of this myth, they all involve a wolf jumping on a male's back and compelling the male to carry him. This phrase suggests that the wolf, which is predominantly male, is forcing sexual activity on the boy. According to Blake-Hu, the myths regard werewolves as a sexual beast because backbiting is commonly known as the sexual position of animals. In different versions, the details of urinating, licking, and defiling further define the sexual act of the werewolf. Furthermore, because werewolves mostly attack males, the myths explore homosexuality, where the wolf represents the human's inner, more unacceptable desires that contrast with the conservatism movement. Through the use of a wolf figure, Germans in the 17th century were able to express the taboo ideas of homosexuality and other sexual desires. Furthermore, the imagery of a narrow road and a corner with many brambles and willows creates an ominous, cryptic mood. These places, where werewolves are usually found, are the places where civilization merges with the natural world. The specifying of nighttime further this secretive, covert atmosphere. Because the location and time create such a discrete mood, the backbiter myth emphasizes the contrast between the radical ideas that the werewolves acted on and the conservative culture of 19th century Germany. To sum up the whole video, the hungry farmhand and the backbiter, two 19th century German werewolf myths, explore the theme of sexual deviancy in 19th century Germany by using specific rhetoric and elements of the natural world. Werewolves themselves blur the line between humans and the natural world because, in their wolf form, they're more associated with the animals of the natural world. The werewolves can be seen as a metaphor for sexual deviancy through their suggestive actions in the myths, as well as their sexual fluidity from their largely male targets. This ties into the rise of conservatism because the myths could be a way for Germans to express their inner, more animalistic sexual desires through a metaphor of a werewolf. Because those actions would have been thought of as sinful, they portrayed those desires in a discrete way with a mythological creature. The human form fits into the conservative German culture, while the wolf form, a metaphor for the inner desires, deviates from it.
That's all for today. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, and click the notification bell below. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.